Welcome to Destiny Worship Center, where you matter. We are so excited to have you worship with us today. Take a moment to share our page with your family and friends. Also, if you have any prayer requests, let us know in the comments. Please join us on the parking lot March the 28th for DWC's 16th church anniversary. If you would like to partner with Destiny financially as we continue to do kingdom work, you can do so in the following ways. Givelify, Cash App, which is $Destiny WCC2, website, which is www.dwccc.org, or you can drop it off here at the church from 11 a.m. to 12:30. God bless the hearers of your word today. Bless the songs lifted to you and the sermon brought to you. We're excited about what you have in store for our future. In Jesus' name, amen.
Once again, good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. Let's just get ready to go into the word of prayer. Praise God.
Thank you. all my needs. God, I bless you right now off of grace. I'm here because of grace. I'm standing because of grace. I'm praising because of grace. I woke up this morning because of now hide me behind your cross, oh God. Whisper in my ear. Tell me what to say. Be the wind beneath my wings. Tell me where to go. I promise we'll be so careful, God, to give you all the honor and all the glory, all of the praise, all the adoration. Let's do to your name. Because can't nobody. But we can get started. I just want to let the enemy know can't nobody. Before we can get started, I want all my haters to know can't nobody. Before we get started, I want that all my problems to know can't nobody. I want that all my brothers to know can't nobody. Do me. God. Right, Jesus. Oh, God. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And all the people of God said, and we are so excited to be here on this first Sunday in March. God has been so amazing. We welcome you just to settle in. Just take the time to inhale and exhale. Allow the presence of the Almighty God to pervade wherever you are worshiping. We've had communications from this past week from the Philippines that they've been tuning in. We've had communications from Pakistan that they've been tuning in to the Destiny Worship Center broadcast. And so we say hello to our new friends. Wherever you are viewing us from, won't you just put in the chat box, I'm watching from Michigan, I'm watching from South Africa, I'm watching from New York. Just let us know. What a mighty God we serve. Oh, God. Before we can get started, I just want to talk to the people who almost this week, the folk who almost gave up this week, the folk who almost walked out the door this week, the folk who almost quit the job this week, the folk who almost gave up on life this week. I just want to say I'm glad you didn't give up. I'm glad that you're still here. I want you to know that I am glad that you are here, because this is a word for those of us who almost. Our scripture reading will be coming from Matthew, the 14th chapter, beginning with the 22nd verse in the King James Version. Matthew, the 14th chapter, beginning with the 22nd verse. Don't stop at the 25th verse. In your quiet time, read all of chapter 14 to get the full gravity of of this text. Verse 22 says, and straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship and to go before him to the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain to pray. When the evening was come, he was there all alone. Verse 24 says, but the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. Verse 25 says, and in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus came unto them, walking on the sea. And I just want to use as a subject on this morning, I see you and I raise you. I see you and I raise you. God, put it in the atmosphere. I see you and I raise you. Praying for grace on this morning. In this narrative, Jesus has just learned that his friend John the Baptist has been killed by Herod. So he tells the disciples he needs to get away. He needs to get by himself. He needs time to grieve and get things together. So he goes up into the mountains to get away, to take an inventory at what he's done, to take an inventory at what he's doing, and to take an inventory of what God has called him to do. And when he comes out of the hills, out of his quiet time, out of his me time, out of his respite, there's been a shift in his ministry. Now, it's easy to overlook this shift because Jesus doesn't make a big deal out of it. But from this moment on, he begins to mostly pour into the disciples instead of trying to convince people that he was the Messiah. I'm going to give it to you one more time. From this moment on, he begins to mostly pour into the disciples instead of trying to convince people that he was the Messiah. Let me hear you say, there's about to be a shift. Go ahead and put it in the chat. There's about to be a shift. Go on if you really mean it. There's about to be a shift. There are times when major events happen in our lives that causes there to be a shift with our spirit, man, a shift with our emotions, a shift with our mindsets and our relationships. And the major theme of the shift is that we've now stopped trying to convince people who we are. We stopped begging people to love us. We've stopped pleading for people to appreciate us. We've stopped falling out if somebody don't want to be our friends. We've stopped going into depression just because someone doesn't hire us. We stopped crying because somebody unfriended us and beating ourselves up because someone left that we wanted to stay and tripping because we're single. Let me say there's been a shift. And because there's been a shift, I'm not preoccupied with what you think about me because I know what I think about myself, and I'm not confused of who I am, and I'm not ashamed of who I am and where God has brought me from. In fact, as Dr. Reuben Shears would say, I am unashamedly black and unapologetically Christian. And in fact, that because there's been a shift, I don't need you to co-sign on my happiness. In fact, I just deleted you from my phone, my computer, my iPad, and my Android in my mind. Let me say there's been a shift. And there's been a shift because I'm about to walk into my destiny, because there's been a shift. I'm going back to school. I'm about to get my GED. I'm about to get my BS, my master's, and my PhD. I'm about to start taking care of me. I'm about to start looking out for me because there has been a shift. I'm getting out of debt. I'm getting out of this neighborhood. I'm disconnecting myself from knuckleheads, and I'm going after everything that God has for me. Let me hear you say, there has been a shift. You can't hang with this. If you can't hang with this, you might need to go down a different path. If you can't hang with my shift, you might need to go down a different road. If you can't hang with this. You might need to connect yourself with a different group of people, because what you need to understand is during this shift, I'm not going back to where I used to be. From this point on, from this moment on, from this from this event, from this life event, I'm going to be better, and I'm going to be stronger, and I'm going to be wiser, and I'm going to be my best version of me. God. So the text gives us a clue as to what Jesus is up to. It says Jesus constrains or makes the disciple get in a boat to go to the other side. Now don't miss this. Without him. Now this is right after Jesus feeds the 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. The multitude and the thousands of people are excited, and they're so excited they wanted Jesus to stay. The disciples are excited and they want Jesus to stay. But Jesus understood that human proclamation would have sabotaged his ultimate resurrection. The text says Jesus forces or makes the disciples get in the boat and disperses the crowd. Somebody's wondering why. I submit the reason why Jesus made the disciples get in the boat to cross to the other side was for 2 reasons. One, it was time to move on. For someone, your inner clock just went off just now. It just told you it's time. You've been where you are for long enough. You've struggled with that thing long enough. You try to make it long enough. You settle for convenience long enough. You dealt with mediocrity long enough. And now it's time to move on. I had set my clock this morning, but I had got up before the clock went off. And I was upstairs, and my cell phone was going off downstairs. And it just kept ringing. And it just kept ringing. All while I was upstairs, it just kept ringing. While I took my time coming downstairs, it just kept ringing. It kept ringing to remind me it was time. And someone has an inner clock that's ringing right now. And your clock is saying, you know what, you've been putting up with that stuff long enough, it's time. You've been going around in circles over there long enough, it's time. Somebody's been working, doing the same thing, and you've been saying to yourself, you know, I'm better than this. I'm smarter than this. I should be doing more than this. And your inner clock is saying, well, it's time. Somebody said, you know what, I should have written that book 5 years ago, but your inner clock is telling you right now, it's time. Somebody said, you know what, I need to go back to school, and your inner clock is saying, you're right, it's time. Somebody said, you know what, I need to get out of this debt that I'm in, and your inner clock is saying, you're right, it's time. Somebody said, you know what, I need to lose this 35 to 40 pounds, and your inner clock is saying, you're right, it's time. Your heart is saying, you're right, it's time. Your high blood pressure is saying, you're right, it's time. Sometimes your body will tell you it's time before you even acknowledge that it's time. Because sometimes you can get so wrapped up in life, you don't even realize that you have let time pass. My clock was reminding me that it's time to do, here it is, what you thought about doing last night. I had set the clock for a certain time because there's something I wanted to do the next day, but I set it the night before. And there's a clock going off in your life right now that's reminding you that you said you was going to do something 3 years ago. You said you was going to do something last year. You said you was going to do something last month. And your inner clock is ringing and it's telling you it's time. Second thing, reason why Jesus made them get in the boat was you will never allow yourself to experience your greatest miracle when you're too wrapped up in your current conundrum. The disciples thought that Jesus had what he had just done was the greatest miracle that they would ever see him do. But Jesus wanted the disciples to know that there was a greater miracle in the boat. God. But they would never experience the miracle unless they got in the boat. So to make sure they got in the boat, Jesus forced them to get in the boat. He made them, God, get in the boat. And when God gave me this word, I saw in my spirit a shore filled with empty boats. But boats that God had instructed the people of God to get in, but they were too comfortable on the shore, too complacent on the shore, too content on the shore. I'm making enough. I'm doing enough. I'm fulfilled enough. I'm serving enough. I'm ministering enough. I'm getting by. Don't miss it. What if the only reason why you're just getting by and not being blessed in abundance is because you've been willing to settle for just being on the shore and refusing to get in the boat? What if the only reason why you're not blessed in abundance is because you keep settling for mediocrity and settling for being unequally yoked and settling for seasons, settling for welfare and settling for sagging pants and settling for religion instead of relationship? But God told me to tell somebody today, there's a boat with your name on it. There's a boat of promotion, a boat of breakthrough and deliverance, a boat of prosperity, a boat of healing, a boat of joy, a boat of peace. Maybe you say, I got a boat. That's what the enemy didn't want you to know. The enemy didn't want you to know you got a boat. You got a boat. I got a boat. All of God's children got a boat. Here's the thing. Will you leave the shore? Will you leave what's safe? Will you leave security for the boat that God has for you? The next thing I saw in the text, which I think is important for us to understand and embrace, is that storms are not exclusive. Word of God tells us that the sun rises on the good and the bad. That it rains on the just as well as the unjust. And whether we trust in God and are saved or not, no one is exempt from the storms of life. Job, after going through all of his heartache and tragedy, said, man that is born of a woman is of a few days and full of trouble. I wish I could tell you that as a child of God, you will not have to face any more of life's storms, and that from this moment on, the moment that you receive Christ into your life, that it will be nothing but smooth sailing. I wish I could tell you that being a Christian shields you from the calamities of life. I wish I could tell you that it protects you from broken hearts and broken dreams and broken ambitions. I wish I could tell you that you won't have to go through hell on your way to heaven. But what I can tell you is that even though the storms come, you serve a God who can either calm the storm or take you through it. I'm going to give it to you one more time. The God you serve will either calm it or take you through it. That should be your shout right there. That no matter what you're going through, God will either calm it or take you through it. Whatever you're looking at right now, God will either calm it or take you. God, I felt that in my baby toe. Whatever you're going through right now, God will either calm that joker or he will take you through, God. What I can tell you is that even though you might be on a ship that seems to be sinking, we serve a God who will not allow you to drown. Right when Peter was going down for the count, he said, Lord, help me. And the text says, Jesus stretched out his hand, saved him and pulled him up and walked with him and talked with him and delivered him and kept him. Throw your head back and let the enemy know, I'm too anointed to drown. I'm too anointed to go down. I'm too anointed to stay down. I'm too anointed. It's not that I won't take a hit. It's that I won't stay down after the hit. It's not that I won't stumble. It's that when I'm finished stumbling, I'm going to straighten myself up. It's not that I won't suffer a setback. It's when I come out of the setback, I will still press towards the mark of the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Now you say, I can't stay down, God. I'm looking at the text, and the text says, the disciples are confused, and because they were confused, I became confused. The text says they are in a very violent storm. But the only reason they are even in this storm at all is because Jesus made them get in the boat. Had Jesus not made them get in the boat, they wouldn't even be in this storm. So the disciples are confused because the disciples are saying, wait a minute, I was safer on the shore. But But we was following Jesus' directions. And in following Jesus' directions, look at what that got us. They were saying, I don't know if they said it out loud, they might have said it under their breath like we do with our parents. They said, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't even be going through this, God. I wanted to stay where I was, but you made us get in the boat. I was cool just being ordinary, but you made us get in the boat. I was chill just being mediocre, but you made me get in the boat. I was all right standing on the sideline, but you made me get in the boat. My confusion, God, is that before I did what you said, I was fine. But now that I did what you requested, I'm in a storm. What do you do when you do exactly what God told you to do and you find yourself smack dab in the middle of a storm? I would like to submit that it is at those times and in those seasons that it is not about what you do, but it's about what you allow God to do for you and through you. Can I let you know a little secret? When you are in the midst of your storm, God is praying for you. Look at the text. Text says in verse 23, when Jesus sent the disciples in the storm, he went up in a mountain to pray. I need you to understand that while you are going through your storm, God, not your cousin in there, not your uncle in there, God is praying for your safety, for your salvation, for your security, for your survival, and here it is, for your sanity. And because we have, as Hebrews 4 tells us, a high priest, let us approach God's throne of grace with confidence so that we might receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. The phrase, in time of need, in the Greek, here's my shout right here. It means right in the nick of time. In the time of need in the Greek actually means in the nick of time. Stay with me. The writer is telling us when we are in the middle of a storm, we have a God who will always show up right, God, in the nick of time. That's a good place to shout right there. Just to know that no matter what you're going through, your God is going to show up right in the nick of time. I just need 3 people who know what I'm talking about, who've been in a storm before. This ain't your first rodeo. You've been in a storm before. You've been broke before. You had somebody need you before. You had somebody stab you in the back before. You lost a job before. You've been on welfare before. You've been sick before. But through all of it, God stepped in right, God, in the nick, God, in the nick of time. I'm looking at the text, and we gotta deal with something that we'd rather not deal with. No matter what you are faced with in life, it is imperative that whatever it is, that we face it back and not run away from it. Because the truth of the matter is, no one can outrun a problem. There is no place where trouble will not find you. Storms or problems come whether you invited them or not. And God uses his own training school to allow us to be able to conquer problems and situations and circumstances. Life is a process of solving problems, and to the believer who has surrendered their life to Christ, every storm or problem is a miracle in disguise. For every believer, every storm or problem is a miracle in disguise. God will not deliver you from your problem, but he will always deliver you in it. God, the deliverance of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not happen prior to them getting in the fire. God waited until they got in the fire to deliver them. Daniel, deliverance didn't come before he got in the den with the lions longer. He waited till they had no options. And when they thought there were no options, then, while they were in it, he delivered them from it. We have a choice to either allow our problems to make us better or bitter. The good news, and this might be your shout for the day, is that every problem has an expiration date. But whatever you're going through right now has an eternal stamp on it. When God says it's over, it's going to be over. Okay, but what am I supposed to do before then, Pastor? What am I supposed to do while I'm in the storm? What am I supposed to do with the waves falling all up in my boat? What am I supposed to do when I'm being tossed to and fro? Our responsibility is to hold up until God shows up. Our responsibility is to watch, fight, and pray. Our responsibility is to trust in the Lord with all of our heart and all of our mind and all of our soul. Our responsibility is to know no matter how out of control our lives might seem to be, God is still in control. And when it's time for God to bring us out, no demon in hell can get in God's way. Here it is. Know without a shadow of a doubt that this present mess is just an introduction to a future miracle. God, I'm going to give it to you one more time. Your present mess is just an introduction to a future miracle. Oh, that should have been somebody's shout right there to let you know that whatever mess you're in right now is about to be a sequence to a miracle. In fact, you ought to put your mess on Facebook just to let your haters see what your mess looks like so they can see what your miracle's going to look like. Oh, okay, God, I hear you. God said, don't be so intimidated by the mess that you can't embrace the miracle. Don't focus so much on the mess that you overlook the miracle that's on the way. God is saying, don't get so wrapped up in this that you forget about that. God said, don't worry about the death. Get excited about the resurrection, God. Okay. 2 points, we go home. Got to show you something God showed me. I had never seen this before ever in this text. I saw that there were 2 storms. There was a storm on the land, and there was a storm on the sea. Jesus sent the disciples away in a boat because there was a storm brewing on the land. The storm is that the crowd wanted to make Jesus king right then. The crowd wanted to avoid his assignment to appease their wants. The crowd was interested in pulling from Jesus, but not in the purpose of Jesus. The crowd wanted religion, but they didn't want relationship. So Jesus had to deliver the disciples from people, because people sometimes can be detrimental to your destiny, God. But don't miss it. God took them from one storm on the land and sent them into another storm on the sea on purpose. God, okay. Because somebody said, well, why would he do that? Because the storm on the land was not in God's will. But the storm on the sea was. Which is telling us they were safer in the storm on the sea in God's will than in a storm on the land out of his will. God. So in actuality, the storm at the sea was for their safety, because he was saving them from the storm on the land. Okay. I sure hope somebody got it like I got it. Could it be your most terrifying storm is actually the safest place for you to be because you're in his will? God, I'm sorry. Could it be that as bad as you think it is, God is saving you from something worse? Could it be that the Jesus came walking on the water. Preston said he comes walking in to the disciples on the very thing the disciples were most concerned about. Don't miss it. Jesus is walking on what they were worrying about. What were they worrying about? They were worried about the waves. They were worried that the boat was going to capsize. They were worrying that the boat was being tossed. And they were worrying that they were going to drown. And at the place of their greatest fear, Jesus comes walking. So what does this say to me right now, preacher? In 2021, how does this affect me right now? How is this relevant to me right now? How does this one act of Christ affect my life right now during a pandemic, right after Snowmageddon? What does this single act of Jesus tell us? It tells us, and if you don't get nothing else, get this right here. It tells us, God, if Jesus can walk on it, you can worship through it. God, if he's walking on your storm, if he is walking on your worries and problems and hurts and concerns and doubts and despair, you can worship through them. If he can walk on it, you can worship through it. Okay, somebody say, I need a little bit more than that. I need something more to hold on to. I need something more tangible. I was looking and I was flipping the channel. I was trying to get to ESPN, and I got to ESPN, and I thought I was going to see something else. I thought I was going to see baseball or basketball or football. That's not what I saw. I didn't even see wrestling. I saw the World Championship of Poker. And so I watched it for a second, George, and I noticed something. I noticed that whoever knew they were going to win, no matter what anyone else at the table did, they would wait and say, I see you and I raise you. Because they knew they were going to win, because they knew they had to win in hand. No matter what anyone else did at the table, they would just wait and say, I see you and I raise you. Somebody said, what does that have to do with anything? When Jesus suffered, bled, died, and rose 3 days later, he gave humanity the ultimate victory. Those who are Christians, no matter what comes their way, no matter what's at the table, when the enemy puts his best down, you can say, I see you. I'm done. And I'll raise you. Oh, God. Oh, no. Yeah, I know, but that's okay. I see you, but I'll raise you. Yeah. I'm trying to get my children together, and I'll see them, but I'll raise you. God, anytime you raise your hand, you are telling the enemy, I see you, but every time I lift my hand up, I'm telling you, I'll raise you. I'm telling you, I won. It doesn't matter what you put down, I won. It doesn't matter what you try, I won. It doesn't matter what door closed, I won. It doesn't matter who walked out, I won. It doesn't matter what the enemy tried, I won. I see you. And I'll raise you. Every time I praise, I raise God. Every time I worship, I raise. I need somebody who's going through hell. This is not no Mary Had a Little Lamb kind of sermon. This is for those of us who've been going through hell on our way to heaven. and the enemy is taking his best shot. I need you to put in the chat, I see you and I raise you. I see you and I'm trusting God. I see you and I'm holding on to God's unchanging hand. I see you and I won't let go. I see you and I won't turn around. I see you and I'm just getting started. I see you and I'm going to put in 2 more days. I see you and I'm going to bless the Lord at all times, and his praise shall continually be in my mouth. I see you and I raise you. The enemy wanted you to be terrified. God wants to be glorified. So whatever the enemy has sent your way to try to terrify you, God said, look at it and glorify me. Let the enemy know I see you and I raise you. I raise you because every morning I tell him, thank you, God. I see you and I raise him. Every time I take a hit and I keep moving forward, I see you and I raise you. When something happens that you never thought would happen, when someone leaves out of your life that you thought would never leave, God is saying, I need you right now to look at it. Let them know I see you, but I raise you. Every time you say I raise you, what you're telling the enemy is that I'm going to be all right. Oh, God, I'm sorry. That was good for me. Oh, God. Every time you raise your hand, you send out a signal that I'm going to be all right. That's why the enemy doesn't want you to raise your hand. Just mess the enemy up one time right now. Just raise your hand, because what you're actually saying is, I'm going to be all right. I've been struggling, but I'm going to be all right. I've been hurt, but I'm going to be all right. Lost some things, but I'm going to be all right. Some people don't know, but I'm going to be all right. Got laid off after 30 years, but I'm going to be all right. Check, the cap not looking like I want it to be, but I'm going to be all right. The cabinet don't look like it's should look, but I'm going to be all right. Don't have as much in the refrigerator that I want, but I'm going to be all right. Car just broke down, but I'm going to be all right. My food ain't acting like I want them to act, but I'm going to be. I'm going to be all right. Woo! Hallelujah. I'm going to be all right. I'm going to be all right. God. are saved, I welcome you as a new believer in the kingdom. If you just repeated that for the first time, just put in the chat, I did it. If you want one more privacy, you can go to our website at dwccc.org to the contact list. Put in your information, your email, so we can touch base with you. Just simply say, I did it. We'll know exactly what you mean. If you've been viewing this worship experience and say, you know what, I know the Lord, but I don't have a church home. We invite you to become a part of the Destiny Worship Center family. You can put in the chat, I want to join, or you can go to the website, to the contact. Put your information and say, I want to join. And if you're not quite sure, just know you need a connection, you need a covering. Till you make a decision, because everyone needs a place to call home, even though we may not be in person. This is still home. You can put in the chat, I need a home. You can go to the contact on the website. Put your information. Simply say, I need a home. You will know exactly what you mean. If you'd like to partner with Destiny Worship Center, you can partner with us through Givelify. $Destiny WCC, the number 2. Destiny WCC, the number 2. You give to Givelify, Destiny Worship Center in Lancaster, Texas. Go to the website, dwccc.org. Click on Give. Or you can drop it off in our physical location here in Lancaster, Texas from 11 to 12:30. Ask that you will continue to pray for us and be there and partner with us and intercede on our behalf. We're praying for Jacoby Hartford, who is going to the Marines. Praying that God will order your steps. Continue to watch us on the 3-point line. Bible studies on Wednesdays. Don't forget we have an amazing church anniversary on the 4th Sunday of this month. We'll do a parking lot celebration. Now to Him who's able to keep us from falling and to present us faultless and blameless and spotless before His coming to the all-wise God, be power, peace, dominion, and glory now and forever. Now I want you to see our announcement card. Oh, sorry, communion, communion, communion. Let us take communion. Amen. Exhale for a moment. Exhale for a moment. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, got the disciples together. He said, I need you to do something. And as often as you do this, you're doing this in remembrance of me. Took the bread and said, this is my body that's going to be broken. Beaten, tortured for humanity's sake. And took it and He feasted on it. You can use bread, whatever you choose to use at home. And said, this represents my blood that's going to be shed on Calvary.